Hi, and welcome to another Average Joe Hockey Report. In this video, we're going to talk about the Vancouver Canucks because of all the changes they've made, and I just want to more or less talk about them, kind of like how I talked about the Buffalo Sabres. For the Vancouver Canucks, let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I like to call it. I'd say there's two good things that the Canucks have done so far. One, fire Jim Benning because he's the one that put the Canucks in the mess in the first place. Mind you, I think that should have been done sooner, but here we are. Two, the Canucks do have a young core that they could go with between Elias Pettersson, who hasn't necessarily been putting up too great of stats with 13 points in 26 games, but he's still very young, and maybe he'll get better should get better once the team gets better. And then also with Connor Garland, which was pretty much the only saving grace from the trade. And then prospects Nils Höglander and Vasily Podkolzin, who will only get better as they get older. And there's also Quinn Hughes, of course, who's anchoring the defense. Also, I wouldn't say that the problem with the Canucks is goaltending. Thatcher Demko could use a bit of help, but I still think that he can provide solid goaltending. Yaroslav Halak, I think, is a decent backup, and you still have Michael DiPietro in the system. Here's what I say is the bad, though. I think the bad right now is the cap space, and it's bad because Brock Besser is an RFA at the end of the season, and I don't know how you sign him. This is why Brock Besser has been a trade rumor, because he's an RFA at the end of the season, and I think it's gonna be hard for the Canucks to have to re-sign him. They might have to sacrifice maybe like JT Miller or Tanner Pearson or something like that to be able to afford Besser. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, the amount of cap space, the lack of cap space, should I say, is not necessarily good. There was even an article criticizing the Canucks on their re-signing of Tanner Pearson, saying they should have let him go instead of re-signing him, which he has another 3 years at 3.2 million basically for his cap hit. For the ugly, I would say that it's it's basically the fact that, like I said, they should have fired Jim Benning a long time ago. I mean, they finally did it, so that's good. So that's why I put it in the good, but it should have been done sooner. Also, if you look on Cap Friendly, look at the defenseman. Quinn Hughes is basically the only one worth his salary right now. You look at Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tyler Myers and whatever. So I didn't want to trash that trade at first that was made, but it was very risky because I feel like it was going to hurt in the long run, but it's hurting in the short run now. I honestly thought that Oliver Ekman-Larsson could turn his career around in Vancouver, considering I feel like Vancouver still has more firepower offensively than Arizona did. However, it was a mistake of me to think that, considering that Nate Schmidt was with the Canucks last season and only managed 15 points in 54 games. Whereas right now with the Winnipeg Jets, in 24 games, he has 14 points. So one less than he did all of last season. And it's looking like he's going to pass that this season. So that's why it was foolish of me to think that. And to add to it, Ekman-Larsson only has 5 points. Guess who else has 5 points, by the way? Luke Shen. Luke Shen, who makes $150,000 compared to Oliver Ekman Larsen's $7.2 million. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Luke Shen, he only has one less point than Tyler Myers, who makes $6 million a year. That's $13.2 million between Myers and Ekman Larsen, and they barely have more points than Luke Shen does. That's not a good look. And you could also make the argument that Travis Hamonic and Tucker Poolman make a bit too much at $3 million for Hamonic and 2.5 for Poolman. But yep, I think this is mostly the reason. I think this is mostly the problem with the Canucks is on their blue line and how they pay their blue line and whatnot. And yeah. Also, I was only gonna put this in the bad. I wasn't gonna put this in the ugly. I'll just go back to the bad basically. The the firing of Travis Green and the hiring of Bruce Boudreau. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. I don't I don't know if Travis Green could have really done much with this roster, for one. I'll be honest, I don't really watch the Canucks too closely. And as for Bruce Boudreau, I don't know what he's supposed to do with this roster. And I don't know if he's the guy to do it. Bruce Boudreau, even then, as a coach with his track record, the furthest he's ever made it in the playoffs was the third round, and it only happened once, and they were eliminated by the Chicago Blackhawks. This was, I think, a season. I think this was one season even before he clashed with Teemu Selanne near the end of Selanne's career in Anaheim. So yeah, you can make the argument that Boudreau's teams were not necessarily the deepest, which is why he didn't go very far. But the bottom line is, I'm not entirely sure if Boudreau is the right guy in Vancouver's situation. I'm not sure. We'll see though. This video is mostly based on opinion and may have no and it may not determine the outcome of the Canucks season, the players on the team, and whatnot. So remember, if I'm wrong, don't belittle me, educate me, because this is Average Joe Hockey Report, hockey perspectives from an average Joe. Take care, everyone, and follow my Instagram account, Average Joe Hockey Report, and my YouTube channel, Marty Tommy, in parentheses, Average Joe Hockey Report.